Journalists, on the whole, are chained to keyboards in offices, and they recycle second-hand information from Newswire and from the public relations industry. And neither of these sources of information is reliable, but both of those sources are recycled, largely unchecked, into what we laughingly call news. And so as journalists get weaker and weaker in performing their job, the PR industry moves in and fills the gap. There's a brilliant example of this with the NatWest 3, who are these three businessmen who worked for a subsidiary of the National Westminster Bank, who got caught up in the aftermath of the collapse of Enron. Within months, evidence is surfacing that the NatWest 3 are embroiled in corrupt and illegal activities. By 2002, the FBI have charged them with criminal offences, and the press have clearly established that these three are bad guys. But there is a single fact in there, which is that they're going to be extradited to the United States with a new piece of law, which is not very fair. So on that slender basis, the PR company who were hired by the NatWest 3 just focused the story on the unjust law. And at that moment, suddenly, the whole angle changes. So almost everybody across the entire political spectrum in the House of Commons and the House of Lords was drawn in by this PR campaign to support it.
I have no idea of whether these men are guilty or innocent. But one thing does seem to me to be clear, that on the question of jurisdiction, any crime that they may have committed seems to me to have been committed in this country and not in the United States.
One of the things that the PR people did was to play the family card. They set up interviews, sometimes the man with the wife, sometimes the wife on her own, and it's to do with making them human, victims. We feel sorry for the wives and the children who'll be left behind. It's suggested that they may lose their homes, so they were heavily played.
He doesn't know when he may come back here, and what faces him in Texas is in stark contrast to this.
These guys were stealing millions of bucks. I mean, they were very, very greedy crooks. But that fact got rather lost in the coverage.
They will be given green boiler suits, prisoners' uniforms, which they will have to wear tonight at a detention centre nearby. Now, although Rory was saying it's quite a modern building, it's also been described to me just in the last hour as pretty grim.
According to the PR stories that were being put out, when these guys got to the States, they were going to be held on bail for years. In fact, they were held in a hotel for rather a short period of time. They were going to be appearing in court with orange jumpsuits and loads of chains. In fact, they appeared in their own clothing, and then they faced jail sentences of 35 years. In fact, they got 36 months. So the whole image of this cruel, ruthless American judicial system that was going to be so ghastly, that was going to treat them like kind of Guantanamo Bay detainees, was really not strictly true.
Finance and transport, and Sky News' Dermot Murnahan traverses the southwest of England on a bike, seeking out tales of financial woe in a series of reports called, amazingly, The Economic Cycle. Apart from getting a sore arse, he found plenty of sorrowful and jobless real people to talk to in what was surely designed to be the most heart-tugging reportage of the year.
Trouble is, he didn't always seem to find quite as much financial misery as he wanted.
What happens, you know, if the sun doesn't shine, if it pours with rain, or the tourists just don't come because they haven't got the money? How much longer can you last?
Well, I think we can last. I think people are realising that they're not going abroad, and I think they're realising that our country, and certainly Cornwall, is just such a stunning place, and most miss it.
Next.
Just talking to Ian out there, I mean, it's fingers crossed, isn't it, for this season? You don't know how it's going to pan out, do you, Sue?
It's looking good, though.
Why do you say that, Kirsty?
Bookings are up 50% this time last year, and we're having a lot more inquiries.
Oh, God.
How are you being treated by your banks? Are they saying, look, Tony, Julie, we understand times are hard, do you need a bit of extra cash here, or are they saying something different?
I think it's haven't been too bad. I've not had a problem particularly, and I must admit that I've been on very helpful.
Brilliant,
and,
great,
at the moment,
great,
we've not had any
brilliant.
problems.
Oh, Jesus.
How are things holding up in this economic downturn for you?
It's not too bad, actually. It's looking good for the coming season.
Oh, this is bullshit.
Why are you optimistic?
Look, I don't want to underplay recession, but guys like you and the newspapers do love a lousy story about how we're going to hang a handcart.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
in many ways, what's
fascinating.
happening, I think is a really good thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh, whatever. Poetry now with our topical verse correspondent, Tim Key.
This poem is about bankers, the dreadful bastards, the dreadful bastards who work in banks, screwed the country over. Anyway, I'll let the poem do the talking. This horrible fucking banker figure sat his fat arse down on a chair in Amanda's office. And in brackets I've got Amanda's part of HR, human resources. The banker had caviar and swan round his chops. And his hair was stuck down to his forehead with sweat. Just a despicable... He was panting, exhausted from the short walk from the glass elevator to the office. Imagine this big fat. And by 14 years of greed. Amanda leaned forward and he peered lustily down her top. Same as like when he leered at the dancers in the strip joints in which he blew his money throughout the 90s. He licked his lips, clonking fish eggs and feathers onto the floor. We're going to have to let you go. Amanda smiled. Is it because the bottom's fallen out? Yes. Is it linked in with me and me mates being irredeemably greedy twerps in the good times? Yes. That and also complaints about your hygiene. Our lumpen banker staggered away in waves of tears. And he staggered to his lawyer. And his lawyer sorted everything out, and he got an excellent redundancy package in the end. Horrible man.
You know, when I suggested doing this Screenwipe current affairs spin-off type show, I thought it would be a good exercise in self-improvement, but in fact all it's done is depress me because the news is so horrible.
We believe from what the police officer was telling us that he killed his 74-year-old grandmother, also his mother, his uncle, his cousin, his 15-year-old second cousin. In addition, he killed a baby, he killed a sheriff deputy's wife, he killed 2 pedestrians, he killed a petrol station assistant, he killed a motorist, he let loose 7 rounds at a trooper, he shot the chief of police, and he shot himself. I will let you digest that for a moment.
Which isn't to say the world itself is horrible. I mean, it's still full of sunshine and flowers and cuddly creatures you'd like to have sex with, like this rabbit. Oh, look at that rabbit. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is there's generally more good than bad in the world, unless you're watching the news, which likes to accentuate the negative at every turn.
For instance, a few weeks ago at a homecoming parade for our boys, a small group of 15 to 20 Islamist protesters kicked up a stink by wobbling a load of antagonistic placards around and loudly decrying Western imperialism from behind a line of Western imperialists defending their right to shout about the system that was permitting them to shout,
if you see what I mean.
Predictably, the protest outraged some well-wishers so much things quickly turned ugly. Before long, 2 people were arrested, one for climbing on top of a supermarket and throwing a packet of bacon at the protesters.
So a tiny minority of another minority tried to stir up some outrage and there's 2 arrests. Not a huge deal. Except the news thought differently, of course.
To the news, it was a huge deal. It provided dramatic material for news bulletins, fantastic emotive copy for populist tabloid headlines, and a great starting point for countless hours of confused debate on shows like Banal Morning, Guff Storm, The Right Stuff.
Steve, what's your feelings on this?
Well, I totally think it's bad that they tried to protest and basically...
And shorter bursts of simplistic yes-no debate on decisive Sky News.
Hello? Yes, I think probably... Hello?
Meanwhile, radical cleric Anjum Chowdhury, who heads the group that arranged the protest, was all over cosy GMTV, enjoying the publicity and their comfy sofa.
And the reality is, you see, that if we had this demonstration at another time, when the parade was not taking place, it probably wouldn't have got the coverage that it's got, and I wouldn't be here now talking about it on your programme.
You've certainly got us all going this morning. There's been a lot of dialogue, and dialogue has to be considered a good thing, I guess. Thank you very much.
It's good that you can come and talk to us about it.
Yes, thanks, Anjum. Now, would you like an infidel biscuit? They're lovely.
There was also another parade scheduled to take place that day, which the news excitedly cut to.
But wouldn't you know it, when the moment of truth came, the Watford March passed off without incident and the news was left without the story.
Parades, let's have a listen to see what's going on down there in Watford.
No, nobody shouting baby killers, this is boring, fuck it.
Still, while there wasn't even the tiniest protest in Watford, there was a huge protest taking place in Northern Ireland, where thousands of demonstrators were taking to the streets in the name of peace.
Yes, that's thousands of protesters coming together to demonstrate against the recent upsurge in Republican violence. So surely if 15 to 20 protesters in Luton gets a lot of coverage, surely thousands of protesters in Northern Ireland is going to get even more, right? Wrong.
Tonight at 10, a mass shooting at a school in Germany leaves 16 people dead.
Yes, because on the same day as the peace demonstration, a lone maniac in Germany went berserk with a gun, killing 16 people. This senseless tragedy provided material for news reports for days to follow. First, there were the initial dramatic breakdowns detailing precisely how the carnage unfolded. There was grim, voyeuristic mobile phone footage of the gunman's last moments, and a chilling reconstruction of a warning he apparently posted on the internet.
He typed these words: "Everybody's laughing at me. No one sees my potential. I'm serious."
Which later turned out to be almost certainly false, incidentally.
The aftermath in Vinnerden proved so compelling for the vulture-like rolling news stations they even filled airtime showing things that weren't happening yet.
2 days later, even footage from an old ping-pong tournament in which the back of the gunman's head was vaguely visible was still considered news.
The latest pictures of Kretschmer show him playing table tennis, his favourite sport.
And 3 days later, even worse footage, pixelated to the point where it looked like a broadcast from the Lego dimension, well, that was considered news too.
In the video, Kretschmer is shown taking part in an arm wrestling contest in Rottenburg last year.
You know, I think if I squint, I can just about make out the face of a killer. Isn't the news brilliant? Repeatedly showing us a killer's face isn't news, it's just rubbernecking. And what's more, this sort of coverage only serves to turn this murdering little twat into a sort of nihilistic pin-up boy.
One thing the news kept plaintively asking was why this had happened.
Why? What had triggered in the mind of a seemingly normal teenager such fury and alienation?
Well, if you want to know why not ask a forensic psychiatrist?
We've had 20 years of mass murders, throughout which I have repeatedly told CNN and our other media, if you don't want to propagate more mass murders, don't start the story with sirens blaring.
The school day had only just begun when the attacker struck.
Don't have photographs of the killer.
The 17-year-old's 3-hour rampage ended in his own death.
Don't make this 24/7 coverage.
The German Chancellor is about to give her reaction. We'll bring that to you live.
Do everything you can not to make the body count the lead story.
Carnage in the classroom, 16 people are dead.
Not to make the killer some kind of anti-hero.
Dressed in black combat gear, the gunman opened fire at random.
Do localize this story to the affected community and make it as boring as possible in every other market. Because every time we have intense saturation coverage of a mass murder, we expect to see one or two more within a week.
But I mean, hold on a second here.
In summary then, not only does bad news always trump good news, but that bad news might itself actually help create more bad news. Which is good news, if you're the news.
Well, that's all we've got time for this evening. Go away.
And Charlie's back with another Newswipe next Wednesday at 10:30. Next tonight, all aboard the hospital train in India.